lately we have seen a rise in media, particularly podcasts or other multimedia and social media, na nagpo-promote or nag-espouse ng views that are actually harmful for women. With me today are some of my colleagues in the philosophy division to discuss what that means for our society and for the young people na nakakanood sa kanya. Ako si Jet mula sa philosophy division.
Hi, I'm Cassie.
Hi, I'm Marga Taganas.
And hi, I'm Yula.
Okay, so when we see or when we talk about these things, yung podcasts at iba't iba pang mga multimedia na parang nagpo-promote, ako, I want to talk about this particularly because I want to explore bakit siya nag-exist, and because it's, I think, actively doing harm, I want to give a critique kung bakit ito yung nangyayari. So, in particular, you have these podcasts that typically target young male impressionable people who talk about themselves and about women in a very, let's say, misogynistic way.
Yes.
Kasi usually nakatago ito under the guise of a self-improvement, na gusto lang nilang paunlarin yung sarili nila. Pero ang kakabit nito is yung pagde-devalue sa women and yung objectification na very rampant. And I'm worried because it's making a mark in a lot of young audiences who then go on to repeat these talking points to actual women in their lives. No? So, matasabi ba natin na misogynist? No? Ano ba yung misogyny muna para ma-clarify natin?
Sorry, I just want to know, actually, before we provide the working definition of what misogyny is, can you give an example of how yung pagpapaunlad sa sarili? I mean, what is an example so that I think we could anchor the discussion on a working definition of misogyny there?
Yung usual package kasi is that it's about improving yourself, improving your view of yourself.
In relation to women?
They say it's in relation to you, and kakabit nito yung value mo as a man is also related to which women you pull. No, kung sino yung sexual partners na nakukuha mo, sino yung mga girlfriend na nakukuha mo. So parang mask as self-improvement, pero meron siyang ganong underlying.
Yeah, I think we could talk about gender roles here, like how young men right now, how do they look or perceive themselves, in relation, for instance, on how the society expects them to be, which is a very big factor when they, set or form their identities, especially their sexualities.
Ang mahalagang makita rin siguro natin ay kung paano ang misogyny as, in general, a woman-hating attitude or practice ay nakikita at the level of the person and also at the level of institutions. Kasi while we look at how these podcasters, YouTubers, through their individual selves, try to promote these misogynistic attitudes and behaviors, you also have to recognize how there is an enabling system. There are institutions which impose on these misogynistic views.
Which is quite interesting because sa ngayon, because of social media, the way we access these kinds of information, actually the word feminism, a lot of people are already aware of what feminism is. A lot of students, for instance, our students already identify themselves as feminists. So the question here is, okay, if everyone has this access, to the information, to the movement of feminism, and what are we trying to fight for in feminism, why are these activities continue to exist, to be prevalent in social media?
Yeah. And I just want to add on the social institutions and maybe some forms of socializations. That's why some young men or boys, I don't know, feel that they have to present themselves as such. So there might be some underlying script or some underlying belief that still
Or
that
ideology.
perpetuates the subjugation of women, because it's still subjugation of women. So what do you think? What do we think are those scripts or social groups that tend to still promote these types of actions?
Even at the level of education, we see perspectives ng mga professors din mismo.
Oh yeah.
Diba? Pero in that way, it can become an avenue to kumbaga formalize these codes, lalo kung they are left unchecked. No? Pero we can also look at institutions such as religion, which teaches certain gender stereotypes, gender norms, na kung saan makikita na women are seen as supposedly submissive to men. At parte na rin siguro ng pagkilala natin sa mga institusyon na to ay yung pagbukas ng conversations, ng avenues to discuss kung yun nga ba, may gap nga ba sa understanding, paano natin pupunan yung gap na yon, at paano natin kakalabanin itong mga misogynistic views na to. Kasi yung feminism itself, sabi ni Ma'am Marga, no, ang dami ng negative connotations attached to it. It's a very misunderstood word. It's a misunderstood movement. And that's why these podcasters and YouTubers see feminism as a man-hating ideology. And because you hate men, we are going to fix that by teaching ourselves and teaching young boys how they should treat women, no? By imposing such and such values.
Yeah, I think we could start also, from the fact, it's a hard fact that we live in a patriarchal society.
Yes.
Like we could contextualize our conversation within that idea that, well, our social and political institutions at the level of family, society, community, and culture, it's embedded. It's like it's ingrained in our social fabric. Our institutions and structures are actually patriarchal, in nature. So like, how do we make sense of these kinds of experiences, realizing or taking into context the fact that women are actually inferior, or supposedly they are seen as submissive? Women are oppressed and subordinated in this kind of society.
Because I think one instance of misogyny is supporting women as not supporting spaces for women, which allows their authentic flourishing. I think an example of this is the burden of care work in the household, which also permeates with the burden of care work towards our professional spaces. Like, for example, in a family, the burden of emotional labor is still given to whoever is the supposedly motherhead. And that practice is still present in in some professional spaces that we are part of. For example, again, emotional labor always tends to be done by women professors in classrooms, women professors or instructors in departments. So I think we say, there is a label that is a good woman. The capacity of that woman to handle burdens from all sorts of spaces, may that be from public, private, or professional. But from the feminist point of view, that's actually a form of subjugation and a form of misogyny.
Ako, siguro to add to that, yung pag-assign nga ng ganong role sa women, although mas malaki talaga yung harm niya towards women, meron din siyang sinesend na message na parang it's natural eh. Natural na ganito yung caring roles dapat yung sa mga babae. Tapos sa mga lalaki, hindi ka dapat nakikialam dun sa mga ganong bagay. Na parang
Which is absurd, but
di ba? Which is also absurd.
It's absurd.
As a complete human being, you are expected to have like a full range of emotions.
Exactly.
So, na parang empathy, caring, that's just part of being a person.
That's part of the self-improvement that you were mentioning earlier. That's the idea of self-improvement.
That's realizing your emotional self. No, that's part of self-improvement. Pero the problem is, if these ideas propagate in a society kung saan naturalized nga or ibinibiin yung ganitong pagtingin, what men are allowed to feel, ay mas yung galit,
Oh, yeah.
anger, explosive bouts of anything. Na as if,
Indignation.
oo, as if the only way of expressing masculinity
Yeah.
or being a man is in doing these traits. Pero we also have to understand that hindi tayo doon limited, and at the same time, actively nakakagawa ng harm yun to the people that are around us. So whether that be on the individual level or on the institutional level.
Yeah. It helps to contextualize all these issues within the patriarchal, society that we live in. Kasi when we say we're in a patriarchal society, yung mga institutions natin, they are anchored, rooted to patriarchal values, which meron silang tinatawag ng mga patriarchal scripts, like women should be, men should be. So it's like these are what we call, the gender stereotypes, and at the same time, how we even perceive masculinity and femininity, the way we attribute, for instance, various traits of women, such as caring, nurturing, loving, and then for men, we attribute the kinds of values, hierarchy, domination. So when we start, deviating from these patriarchal scripts, that's where, these kinds of oppressive forces, oppressive structures begin to affect women.
Yeah.
In this sense, I think mahalaga na tingnan din natin ngayon yung role ng media in sustaining
Yes.
itong mga patriarchal scripts na ito. No? Kasi kung susumahin, ang laki ng power ng role ng media in informing people the kind of lifestyle they should live, who they should be, how they should understand themselves. And if we don't keep them in check, if we don't criticize them, edi lalo lang tayong lumulubog doon sa problema, which is nakakulong tayo still in this misogynistic na worldview.
Yeah.
Gusto nating kumawala. No? Yun ang goal. Gusto nating kumawala. At nakikita ngayon natin ang kahalagahan ng filosofiya, ng feminist philosophy and feminism, this movement in general, in challenging yung gantong mga worldviews. And in criticizing those powerful institutions, such as the media, that tries to perpetuate and sustain, nurture, itong mga injurious na pananaw na ito.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I was thinking of, we started with a discussion on specifically podcasts, right? And then it grew into the online media platforms that we have now. But if we try to reflect, or if we try to review prior media, aside from the online media that we have now, if you listen to radio, popular media, TV,
Magazines, newspapers.
The jokes are still misogynist. And well, it permeates the psyche of the majority of our kapwa Filipino. And I think it's a hindrance into creating safer spaces. The one instance that I could provide is that, well, at least now in buses, there's what we call the bawal bastos sticker.
Spaces,
it's just a sticker. So, okay, yeah, we what do we call that? Okay, fine, we accept that there is progress in the campaign against these types of things for safe spaces. But hopefully, we try to find other ways, may that be in online media or in our materials that we engage with in everyday lives, that does not end with a sticker.
Yeah, and actually we even have people we call post-feminists. Kasi these people believe that, well, feminism, it already grew into like a very, very big movement. Women are now able to enter these kinds of spaces, like the public spaces, which were before, disregarded sila sa mga kinds of spaces na yun, spheres na yun. But right now, we're seeing that a lot of people are still arguing, there's no need for feminism. Women can wear what they want. Women can say what they say right now. Women can enter politics, women can enter education. So like, what's there to fight for? So that misses the point that until one woman feels unsafe, walking down the street, being catcalled, or kaya the fear of going home alone, these things, until we feel safe, until one woman does not feel safe, we can't say that all the movements or all the wins have already been, fought for.
Yeah, and this is also, it's not just harmful in our everyday expressions of ourselves or in our everyday pursuit of what is a good life, but as philosophers as well, in our own field of philosophy, there are a lot of misogyny in our profession.
Well, it's a male-dominated philosophy.
Exactly, but I think one way of trying to combat it is making sure that all voices from the marginalized groups, aside from women, we have our queer folk as well, and our from sectors from the differently able, to make sure that all of these voices and experiences are really seen, and that they are provided with different forms of media that were always given to the male figures of the society, and that authority should not just be centralized in that particular authority, but has to be relegated to all of us.
Yeah, now that we have talked about these issues, so maybe we could also identify ano ba yung mga far-reaching consequences, for instance, of these kinds of media. Kasi kung napapalaganap siya and it proves that it influences a lot of the people in social media, specifically the younger generation, parang what kinds of oppressive forces, structures that women and other members of marginalized groups are experiencing right now. Halimbawa, what can we really say about misogyny? How is it different with sexism? Usually, they are being used interchangeably, pero can we really, is there really a stark difference between the two? How should we use, and how is it beneficial for our analysis of these issues? What do you think about these sexism and misogyny, which is very central to the concepts of feminism?
Well, from a philosophy point of view, I think the looking for the concepts and frames wherein which we can further analyze why oppression is happening, why is there social injustice, even at the level of the personal relation. I think for me, it's important that we have all of these categories of sexism, and then knowing when it is misogyny solely, categorically, and sexism. Because we also understand that there are different forms of injustices, not just against women, but again, against marginalized sectors in society. So I think it's important for us. The first one is to acknowledge that there is injustice, that there is inequality still.
That women's oppression
is there.
Yes, that is actually like the presupposition in any feminist research, feminist study. You can't really, have a complete study of these things without recognizing this hard fact.
I think it's that presupposition na mini-misunderstand or mini-misrepresent nitong ganitong media Kasi a lot of these talking heads, I would refer to them as talking heads, no? A lot of these base their entire thing or their entire brand on this idea, tulad ng sinabi mo, Ma'am Margo, parang nagtagumpay naman na daw ang feminism.
Women are empowered now.
Women are empowered. Women are allowed to say what they want to say.
Exactly.
And everything. They even go to the point that feminists are actually the ones controlling media. So they paint themselves as the counterculture. They paint themselves as the alternative na parang dahil binabaligtad nila yung very real presupposition na women are oppressed. Nasabi nila na hindi na oppressed ang women. Actually, ang oppressed na ngayon ay yung mga straight na lalaki.
Wow.
This is very dangerous.
Which is very dangerous, exactly. Kasi that's the idea wherein they are made to feel as if they are being emasculated.
Yeah.
And
But
then,
they are victims, Victims ng mga
They're
babae.
painting themselves as victims.
Victim ng feminism.
and then this gives them an excuse to lash out against women. Whereas doon sa data nung mga ganon, mas actually makikita natin yung very real oppression pa rin towards women because there have been several reports or several instances of women being stalked, or women
Sexually
being
harassed.
Catcalled.
catcalled, because the man who is pursuing the woman feels as if that woman owes him something
Yeah.
because of some nice thing na ginawa niya.
Yeah.
And that's something that is very dangerous to cultivate in a very young and impressionable audience. Nagre-result siya ng ganun
And di ba meron ding mga grupo, kumbaga university or academy nila tinatawag ang sarili nila, na ang goal, turuan ng mga lalaki kung paano kumuha ng mga babae. And these mga teachings o mga tinuturo nila doon ay kahit mag-say no ang babae, ituloy mo. They want it. They want the chase.
Really?
So,
Yeah.
yes, tinuturo nila
If they
yun,
say no, that's like, you have to.
But that's
it's
harassment.
like, yes.
If they say no, try again.
Yes, if they say no, try again. And ikaw as lalaki, if you don't try again, you are weak, you're not being masculine. So they teach na for you to be masculine, for you to be a real man, you have to pursue aggressively even if the woman says no.
So yung force and violence is always like attributed to masculine. Eh. Kaya nga, di ba, when you are like, men or boys even were taught that like, this is the only way for you. Like violence, to be aggressive. Kasi that's what makes a man yung pagiging emotionless mo, no? So I think these kinds of stereotypes, that have been long been criticizing by feminists, nag-resurface sila because of the various media that promotes this kind of culture.
Yeah.
People in power too, who promote this kind of culture, this kind of language. Of course, it influences what's in media, what's in YouTube or in other platforms, no? Sinusunod, syempre, kung anong nakikita.
So I think from this short discussion, we can say that there's a lot of things that's happening within the discourse on misogyny and women empowerment. So maybe just to wrap up this short discussion that we have, maybe we can share how can we be allies to women, to ourselves, and to those who are experiencing oppression. How can we be allies in this fight against misogyny?
Yeah, ako siguro, I will, of course, so let's be mindful of intersectionality.
Yeah.
I mean, feminisms, as we have mentioned, it's feminism is feminisms, like it's intersectional. If we really want to look into the issue of oppression, for instance, not only sa women, not only to marginalized groups, non-binary, but oppression in general, marami tayong mga social markers and social divisions, like our identities, it affects our gender, our sexuality, our ability. So it's like Marilyn Fry's conception ng kanyang concept of oppression, wherein like it's we can look at it like a bird cage, wherein if you look closely, we can see there that the bird is only being, kumbaga, prohibited lang siya ng isang steel, kumbaga, o ng isang post doon, and then we can just ask, why don't the bird just, fly away? And then that's it. Solve na problem niya. It's already free. But, you zoom it out and then we see various kinds of posts, various kinds of steel na nag-i-impede doon sa paglipad ng bird. So I think we can look at oppression like that these kinds of steel, these kinds of posts are actually the different kinds of barriers that we experience, that they are intersectional. And we can't just look at one side of the coin because these are like axes of oppression and we cannot treat them in isolation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kahit na meron na tayong nakikita na sort of progress in feminism, of course, we owe it to the feminist groups na meron na tayong mga gantong progress kahit papano ngayon. Pero we should not stick to this very simplistic mindset na wala nang sexism.
Exactly.
Na equal naman na ang babae at lalaki. Kasi once you start with that point, once yun ang naging vantage point mo for all your viewpoints and actions, then everything follows. You sustain patriarchy in effect.
Yeah.
At nagiging kalaban tayo ng pagkakapantay-pantay.
Yeah.
But if we want equality, we need sustained efforts. And in relation to the concept of intersectionality, we as feminists, we cannot speak for the experiences of everyone, even in the Philippines. That's why what we need is to include them in the conversation, to give them their voice and amplify their voices so that we arrive at a more holistic understanding of who
and
we are as
inclusive.
inclusive understanding of who we are as Filipinas And that understanding hopefully would lead to better, more appropriate solutions
Yeah.
to our pressing problems.
For me, I think it's important to believe women, to make sure that their voices are heard, and to make sure that it is their voices and it is their words. So for me, that's one significant and practical way of supporting women.
Ako as a man, and to the young men and boys in the audience, no, we have to recognize and understand the actual problem, the actual problem, which is patriarchy. We have to understand that patriarchy also harms us, and that feminism is not against us. Feminism is also we can also be feminists. No? We are also
You can
we would
benefit from
also benefit
feminism.
from feminism, and that there are a lot more male role models that you can look up to. Hindi yung mga convicted sex traffickers, no, or pseudo-psychologists that give out these advice that are actually harmful if you even try to talk about the actual women in your life, how they would view this. It would really help you a lot. So, para sa mga lalaki, we have to understand na
The privilege.
hindi to personal na bagay. Pag sinabing men are trash, hindi sinasabing ikaw, you as a person. No? It's an institutional problem.
Yes.
It's a large problem in that we have to acknowledge our privilege that we have being men in a patriarchal society. And we have to acknowledge na merong hindi tamang nangyayari doon, na medyo kailangan natin baligtaran.
And I think that ends our brief but insightful discussion on misogyny in different medias in the Philippine society. Again, thank you very much. I'm Cassie, and these are my colleagues.
I am Jet.
I'm Marga.
And I'm Yula.